Looking forward to this discussion here, following up on our CBD and legalization of medical marijuana in Tennessee. But I want to be more specific with what I feel is necessary is legalization of cannabis and decreased, stigmatism, cultural stigmatism towards cannabis in general, as there is a place right now that marijuana can be abused. Those cannabis plants, marijuana plants that are higher in THC can be abused by some. But luckily, with the research here in my hands, it is showing that the risk of abuse is far less than that of of drugs such as alcohol, heroin, cocaine, are narcotic pain medications that have caused the worst epidemic in history, with 33,000 people dying every single year because of heroin and narcotics. So our pain medications are killing more people. So those are our most dangerous drugs out there, marijuana being less risky for dependency and addiction than alcohol. So if alcohol is legal, then with a better safety profile and less risk of dependence and addiction, I would think we should legalize marijuana. Beyond that, before we get into the research, I do want to talk a little about where we're going to be reviewing medical marijuana use in oncology, so in the realm of cancer treatment or assistive therapies for people undergoing cancer therapies. Before we go into that, I just wanted to really just kind of talk about where I feel our thought process needs to go and how we need to encourage some of our Tennessee legislators. I definitely want everybody to contact Mark Green, Andy Holt, other Tennessee legislators out there right now. Let them know your opinion in that if you wish for this to be legalized, I strongly encourage you to do that. My feeling on it is this. I feel that people need to be taught right from wrong, but given the opportunity and the freedom to choose what they do with their own bodies. This is my body. I should be able to choose what I want to do with it, as long as it doesn't negatively affect maybe my children's lives. There would be need for individuals to step in, but when it comes down to it, I have control over my body. Just thinking about the comments from individuals such as Andy Holt, a legislator here in Tennessee, I think, and I really respect the man for a lot of his values, and I respect the man for being outspoken about his Christian and moral values, and that he doesn't want to see marijuana legalization take a negative effect on lives of his community members and people across Tennessee, and I respect that very, very much. But I would like to ask him and encourage him to think about it in a different way than just as a Christian. Christianity says that we shouldn't separate our mind from reality. We shouldn't be addicted to drugs. But you could say then, well, look at everything else that we have right now. Or is he in a fight to make cocaine or make narcotics, pain medications illegal? Is he in a fight to make sure that antidepressants that cause indifference and cause increases in suicide, is he fighting to make those illegal to be prescribed to any child? If he's not doing that, then why is he saying he's standing against one medicine for X reason, Christian moral values, but not standing against other drugs that are already legal and already known to cause worse harm and worse mind-altering effects than marijuana? Now, again, there's a difference between marijuana and cannabis in terms of hemp. Hemp is where we're right now utilizing the CBD, cannabidiol. Cannabidiol oils are effective against so many different health conditions in the treatment of those problems, some being able to heal. And I'm always an advocate for let's search out the underlying cause of a health condition. Let's not merely treat the symptoms. So if we're using CBD to treat the symptoms of a headache, while we're treating those symptoms, please get to a chiropractor that can correct your spine and get the pressure off the nerves in the upper neck, as that is the primary cause of migraines and headaches. Get that corrected. If you have a digestive issue, look for why. Are you eating a terrible diet, or do you have misalignments in your lower back and your spine? The cause of a disease is not the lack of cannabidiol oil being ingested. That's not the cause of the problem. So ultimately, we need to look at cannabis. We need to look at turmeric and herbs and ginger root and garlic and all these natural wilderness remedies. Whether it be ginseng, anything. We can look at those as things that we can assist our body in the healing process to overcome traumas, stressors, illnesses, infections, those things. But we don't want to be dependent on anything at all. That's my opinion there. We want to depend on our body's capability of healing, and that's the greatest power that we'll ever be harnessing, that we could ever harness, is the ability for our nervous system and our body to heal and function properly. So I'm always an advocate for correct cause, but use wilderness remedies and those things for periods of time to assist the body in recovering from illnesses or stressors. So that's a way to do it. My thought process for Andy would be, if I could speak to him, I'd want to ask him, who did God give ownership of this plant to? Did he give the ownership of this plant to anyone in our government? Did he give ownership to this? If God created everything and he gave us these things to be used, he's provided us with everything we need. The Bible says that. We need to know how to use it and use it properly. If we know how to use it and use it properly, when we educate people, we can encourage people not to abuse it. All right? We can encourage people to use it for the right reasons and the beneficial reasons. That's God's plant. He created it. So how can our government take ownership over something that God created? Now, I'm okay with saying when we take opioids and we create cocaine, or we create narcotics and use narcotics for the wrong reasons, for pain that doesn't necessitate the use of such a strong and powerful and addictive drug. If we make things and we concoct things that then can cause great harm, which we're not seeing that with a plant and extracting the whole plant. We're not seeing that. Doesn't happen with marijuana right now. The safety profile is amazing compared to other drugs already on the market and legalized. That's God's plant. He created it. Give ownership back to him and let him instruct through his teaching how and when to use it. He says, don't separate your mind from reality. Why? Because when we're separated from reality, we do harmful things to both ourselves and others. This is why so many medications for which CBD could effectively replace, such as antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications, that increase the rate of suicide and homicide because they cause indifference. They cause a chemical frontal lobotomy. And then we see so many, up to 25% of people taking narcotics, even for a temporary basis, becoming addicted to those narcotics, 25%. And it's caused the greatest epidemic of drug overdoses and deaths due to heroin and narcotic opioid drugs. We could replace it with something safer. Why not take that opportunity to give the plant that God created back into the hands of the people, his children? God created the earth for us. So allow us to use the things on this earth that God created freely. Remove ownership over something. As a Christian, I would believe removing ownership over something that God created, taking ownership away from a government, from an individual, from a drug company. I mean, if Andy Holt or anyone else is against medical cannabis, even the THC side of it, well, then you'd be able to be big advocates for destroying the pharmaceutical industries, the drug companies that have now patented and synthetically creating THC substances that alter the brain. Because that's the chemical in marijuana or cannabis that's being used for the wrong reasons, for the psychedelic, for the effect on the mind. So if it's synthetic and it's legal, why don't we just legalize the plant that God created so that people wanted to grow it in their backyard and use it for the right reasons, hopefully, with proper education, they would be able to do that. That's what I feel as a Christian myself, that other Christians should see and understand, is that our government doesn't own the things that God created. God created those for us to be used and understood, and the understanding of those plants goes way back in history, that to me, I'm almost like, if science is just now catching up with the understanding of the effectiveness and why cannabidiol and cannabinoids and CBD and other enzymes and chemicals in cannabis effectively work against different diseases, when here in this researcher, a Chinese emperor in 28th century BC, the 28th century BC, Chinese emperor hailed the effectiveness of cannabis for rheumatism, gout, pain, malaria, absent-mindedness, enhancing the mind. So if they knew back then it would effectively work that, I'm like, how in the world did they have the insight even before any type of science and molecular imagery and microscopes and all the clinical trials that we use? How did they know? How did they find it effective for all these different things? And science is just now getting to the point where we can say it's research-based. It goes way back then. So please, again, call your representatives, encourage them to give back to the people the right to use God's creations for the reasons they so choose. Remove the control of government. Government it's far-reaching, way too far. They're reaching out way too far than what they should. They're trying to control our lives and our choices. There's a time and place. I thank God for the police department. I thank God for local governments and things that they do, but we need less government. Government has caused great problems. They've allowed drug companies to basically monopolize the healthcare industry through lobbying for insurances to pay for expensive drugs and surgery while not paying for people's and assisting with their organic fruits and vegetables. You know, I believe this could be something that could revolutionize even our economy in the United States, where we could be a producer of a crop that so many countries desire and want, that if we would produce that, we could get ourselves out of debt. We could heal so many or improve the lives of so many people that they would no longer be dependent on different drugs and medications. People would survive. Just announcing the fact that this was going to be our discussion of CBD and its use in the fight against cancer. We had a individual, Marlena, comment that she is a cancer survivor here who did it with nothing but cannabis and diet. Marlena, I would love to have you on the show sometime and actually have a discussion with you. Please do comment, like, share, and just let me know what you think of the information that I'm presenting, and definitely chime in on the things that you did. That's really awesome. One of the books that if you're fighting cancer, I want to give you more information, and we'll talk a little about what cancer is, why it develops in our bodies, and then we'll go through this research. But cancer is our body. It is our own cells that have actually started to go outside of the control of our nervous system, and our immune system cannot regulate their activity and suppress the growth of that cancerous cell. So cancer is our own body gone awry. We have to understand that if anyone is a cancer survivor, you have to understand that something in our life, for the majority of people stricken with cancer, there was something in their life that they were surrounded by, maybe chemical toxins, poor nutrition, excessive stress, spinal traumas. All these things are known to contribute to illnesses such as cancer. So we have to understand that we have to remove those things and correct the causes of the cancer in the first place, because if we just poison it, if we just poison our bodies and then kill cancer cells with different poisons they elect to use currently in the medical world, we're not removing the cause in what comes back. This is why throughout the years we've said we're battling cancer, but yet we've seen more and more people die of cancer every single year in America. One of the only times we saw a reduction in the actual mortality rate, the death rate of certain types of cancer, such as breast cancer, was when the drug companies came out and said, hey, we lied about a drug. Well, they didn't actually admit it, but the research came out to show that their drug was falsely advertised. Their hormone medications actually increased the rate of breast cancer. So just take that into consideration. Drug companies, I want to take the power out of the hands of the drug companies that are bankrupting this nation. We spend over 1/5 the gross domestic product. We spend 35% of Tennessee's budget, Tennessee's state budget, 35% goes to pay for medical expenses just for things like TennCare. Just our state, local medical expenses of government subsidized insurances. That is ridiculous. We need to find ways for people to be able to live a healthier lifestyle and be encouraged and be excited about living it. And when I can think about growing my own medicine for me and my family on my own land, my own food, that gets me pumped up. I love thinking about the future farm, the Wild Doc Health Center out there, you know, growing elderberry, ginseng, wild medicinal mushrooms, you know, harvesting different plants and trees and all kinds of stuff. Like, I can't wait for that opportunity. You know, I've got chestnut trees going, crabapple trees going, persimmons trees growing. That's more for the deer right now, though. I'm feeding the wild deer and the turkey. And then I'm going to grow some, you know. I got it. All right, so let's go through the research here. Thank you for again chiming in, everybody on there. And to keep me informed on any questions there are or any significant topics. Hi, from the UK. We've got people from all over the world, and I love that. I love that I'm reaching out to people all over there. So here we go. Chinese emperor, a little history on the use of cannabis in medicine. Chinese emperor, 28th century BC, already talked about that. They knew all the way back then rheumatism, gout, malaria, and absent-mindedness were things that they would use cannabis to treat. In 1611, Jamestown settlers, the settlers of our United States, used cannabis and exported it as a profit. It was introduced into Western medicine in the 1840s for things like analgesic or pain relief, anti-inflammatory effects, anti-spasm effects. So utilizing this as a supplement that can help people overcome current health conditions. When I'm dealing with the spine and I'm correcting somebody's spine, I'm encouraging them to take things like turmeric with black pepper that helps to reduce inflammation. And now I've got something like CBD oil to where people could take if they're having significant spasms, instead of taking a narcotic pain medications or Flexeril or a spasm medication, use something plant-based, natural, that has multiple other benefits with no toxic effects, it seems, to our bodies, except for when you smoke. They literally said toxic effects on this drug. You have to look at this. Okay, to extrapolate the estimated lethal dose of cannabinoids from animal studies, and they're talking specifically more about the THC component of this, animal studies, approximately 680 kilograms would need to be smoked in 15 minutes. Like, I can't comprehend what 680 kilograms of marijuana would look like, and you need to smoke that in 15 minutes to kill yourself. When you could take a few narcotic pain medications and pop a few in your mouth, and that's what's happened to so many of our actors or actresses in America. Just look at that. So anti-spasm, anti-inflammatory, anti-convulsive properties, so for seizures, those types of things. French psychiatrists, they actually found it to be able to suppress headaches, again, get to the root cause of each one of these problems, increase appetite and aided in sleep, and that's what they found now for cancer patients, is increasing appetite. If you take into consideration that anywhere from 40 to 50% of patients undergoing cancer treatments die of malnutrition due to the fact that chemotherapy destroys their intestinal lining, and destroys their appetite, destroys their taste buds, makes it painful to eat, to go to the bathroom. They don't want to eat and they die of malnutrition. 40 to 50% of cancer patients die of malnutrition. Just the fact that medical marijuana or cannabis could aid in increasing appetite. So hopefully these patients undergoing cancer treatment or battling cancer, hopefully they'd utilize more natural remedies like cannabidiol or CBD, and they even found anti-tumor, anti-metastatic properties in cannabis. So it could literally kill cancer cells, turn on the cells, turn cancer cells, their switches on that signal apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, for which cancer cells lose the ability to die as programmed. Our cells should go through a life cycle. They should have a time period they should live and do their job, and they should die off and be replaced with new ones. But there should be this constant cycle. It's when those cells stop dying as they should according to cellular apoptosis, is when now we have cancer. So look at all these all the things that we could improve lives through the use of cannabis. U.S. Pharmacopoeia, 1850, labor pains, nausea, rheumatism, all those things being used from American medicine at one point in time. But again, this DEA and government wants to say it's a Scheduled I drug, which it doesn't even reach that definition of a Schedule I drug, because there is definitely proven medicinal benefits in the use of CBD. And again, I'm going through this, I'm going to mention this multiple times. All these videos we post on thewilddoc.com. You can get the links to these research studies on there so that you can read them yourself, you can share it, because a lot of people don't want to listen to some wild and crazy, kooky, bearded, cowboy hat wearing with a pheasant feather in his hat guy about cancer. They want to be like, why didn't my doctor? Where's the research? Where's the proof? That's why what I'm doing is I'm sharing with you the evidence in a lighthearted, fun kind of way. It gives me something to do and educate people, and then be able to give you the actual resources, the references, the research to go to your friends and family members and be able to share the truth with them. I'm asking people on Facebook, don't just like the truth, share the truth, because that's the only way we save lives with this information. Got a question there, Anthony?
Just a comment.
Comment?
Yeah.
Whitney? My husband's stepdad was just diagnosed with stage 3 or 4. We are still waiting on everything, lung cancer. They want him to do chemo 5 days a week, even though they gave him 6 months to live with no chemo. I would love to see him try cannabis instead. I think no matter what, if I was him, I would definitely incorporate cannabis or CBD. I can't give you a recommendation to your father-in-law, but I would highly recommend incorporating different things. There's things like milk thistle can help prevent chemotherapy damage to the liver. Turmeric is another one with black pepper and is effective at signaling and targeting cancer cells and killing them off. All these things proven in the research. There's many things that I would highly suggest him do. Oftentimes I wish I could get on the phone with people and we can do that, but give him information. He needs to do more than what, if he's stage 4 and it's spread throughout his body, the reality is I would send you definitely, I want to pull it up almost. I feel like I need to spend a little bit of time with this. There's a New England Journal of Medicine article that talks about stage 4 cancers such as metastatic lung cancer, metastatic and stage 4 colorectal cancer patients that were not told the truth about their chemotherapy regimens, that they were not told that the chemo had no chance of curing them whatsoever, yet doctors convinced them that it was going to cure their cancer, gave them false hope in something that would not cure their cancers. I have that research study. Whitney, if you need to email me, please do, and I'll get you that reference. But they talked about how it was like 69% of terminal, it was like 81% of terminal colorectal cancer patients and 69, or vice versa. So 81 and 69 may have been reversed on those percentages, whether it be lung cancer or colorectal cancer patients. But they were told that, hey, they were not told chemo was not going to fix them. So your dad is exactly that study's arena. It caused him great harm. He needs to have hope and find hope in something else, because chemotherapy is admitted not to work, according to that research, and many others. I'll email you that. He needs to read that, Whitney. If he reads that, he'll know he needs to be, it doesn't mean he doesn't have to follow recommendations and do chemo. He needs to make that decision for himself. But if he can take that information, he'll at least see that I cannot rely, because it's not curing my cancer. It's not going to heal me. It's not going to get me well. He needs to understand that first and foremost, so that he can then search out things that could actually give him a future life, a health, a restoration of health. I'll tell you quickly, Whitney, my aunt's story. This is why I'm passionate about cancer. We're not even going to get through all the research study, because I have to end the talk about 6:30 here. But my aunt's story, why I became a chiropractor, the type of chiropractor I am, why I want to learn more about natural medicine and help people across the world, is because my cousin Josh was going to chiropractic school. My cousin Josh was going to chiropractic school, and at the moment in time, about halfway through, his mom got cancer for the second time. She had gone through chemo, radiation, and surgery the first go-around. They cut off her breast. They did chemo and radiation. It destroyed her immune cells to the point where she almost bottomed out and died. So they had to stop their chemotherapy regimen because they about killed her. And they told her she was cancer-free because none of their tests showed that she had any cancer, active cancer cells in her body. Tests weren't effective enough in showing her that her body was still diseased and still unhealthy, and the cancer was going to come back, because it does if you don't get rid of the root cause. And it did, and it came back on her lungs. When it came back, luckily my cousin Josh was going to chiropractic school, and he was working with other chiropractors in a holistic viewpoint of how we get the body functioning and healing well. They told him, go home to your mom, you take her to Dr. Majors, you take her to Charles Majors in Chicago, you get her on a strict chiropractic structural correction regimen, you change her diet, you do everything right for her body. And that's what they did. They traveled there, they started getting her adjusted. She had such severe misalignments that she could only go to the bathroom once every 7 days. She was so toxic. And there's plenty of research showing that if we don't go to the bathroom regularly enough, we are going to have an increased risk of cancer due to toxicity effects, especially breast cancer. So she starts getting adjusted, and as soon as she did, she started having regular bowel movements. First of all, she actually started having diarrhea, as if her body was starting to catch up. She starts hacking up black and green phlegm. So her body started detoxing, functioning properly, and through that process, that alone got her body so well that the tumor shrunk by 50% in 3 months. 9 months later, it's completely gone, and it's almost, I think it's like 16 years now she's survived metastatic cancer, for which doctors told her, like Whitney's husband's stepdad, that she'd have 3 to 6 months to live, and she's still here 16 years later and didn't take an ounce of chemo, not an ounce of, not a beam of radiation, not a single surgery for that. She got her body functioning well. She fed her body what it needed. She supplemented properly. She used wilderness remedies, as I like to call them, nutritional supplements that enhance the body's capability of fighting off cancer. Give the body the superchargers of our immune system, medicinal mushrooms, the cannabidiol, the turmeric, the ginger root, the garlic. Garlic's one of the most effective foods against cancer and killing almost every single cancer cell line available tested. I mean, there's powerful stuff in nutrition. We need to utilize it and harness it. That's why I'm such a big advocate for the legalization of medicinal herbs and plants that we can grow and harvest and use properly to help ourselves. So make sure you call your senators and legislators here in Tennessee. Thank you for chiming in there, Whitney. I pray for your father's or your stepfather or your husband's stepfather's recovery and knowledge that would be given to him so that he can see what he needs to do to get well. Here is a 2013, a poll of 1,446 physicians found that 76% approved the use of marijuana for medical purposes. They said that they cited their responsibility as caregivers to alleviate suffering. The American Medical Association also encourages that they would condone the legalization for research purposes. I love that doctors hold true to the responsibility to alleviate suffering. That's their duty, that's their job. Chemotherapy induces nausea and vomiting. They found that cannabinoids were significantly more effective than all other medications for nausea and vomiting. 18 studies cross over to 38% to 90% of patients. So 38% to 90% of patients preferred using cannabis while going through chemotherapy. So when given the opportunity, they prefer to take cannabis, CBD, cannabidiol, or THC mixtures than other medications for vomiting and nausea. 14 studies of a synthetic involving 680 patients, anti-vomiting effects significantly greater than that of 4 other medications used. Cancer-associated pain, neuropathic pain, is where it's most effective because the cannabinoid 1 receptors on our nervous system, on our nerve cells, are at such high concentrations or amounts that it effectively lowers nerve pain. So diabetic neuropathies, other traumas to the nervous system, it helps to regrow and elongate nerve cell growth and reconnection. In different studies as far as the nervous system, they found that high concentration areas of the brain modulate nociceptive processing, similar to the distribution of opioid receptors. So similar to opioid receptors, but without the narcotic risks, the risks of addiction due to narcotic use. Nociception is basically, it's not necessarily the exact same as pain, but for this instance, we'll reference nociception being pain receptors. Nociceptors are what our body and our brain uses to signal and feel pain. So if we can help regulate that or downregulate that or help them regulate the sensation of pain to our conscious brain, we can help people with neuropathic or neuropathies, nerve pains. Chiropractic is very effective at that as well. That's why I feel that it's with everything I'm seeing, from the improvements in nerve function to brain function to restoration and enhancement of nerve regrowth to reduction in nerve pain, I'm looking at this as a chiropractor that is desiring to heal and correct nervous system function. Well, I can't. Right now, I'm looking at it like this may be the best supplement ever in terms of enhancing and assisting in recovery of nervous system conditions. On enhancing the release of anti-inflammatory substances, hypersensitivity issues, again from neuropathic pain, could be reduced with the use of cannabidiol. This is amazing. The report showed that, one study showed that 10 milligrams of THC produced analgesic effects over a 7-hour period of time, comparable to 60 milligrams of codeine. 20 milligrams was as effective as 120 milligrams of codeine. So needing less substance and just as much benefit. And another study in patients with uncontrolled cancer pain despite long-term narcotic or opioid use, the results showed that pain relief was superior in the THC CBD group, with twice as many patients experiencing a 30% reduction in pain compared to the placebo. Now, the THC alone group performed similar to the placebo, so showing that the CBD had one of the most effective pain relief, was effective with pain relief. So cannabis as an anti-tumor agent, in vivo and in vitro, so that would be in animal studies as well as in Petri dish studies. There's just cell studies. Research proposed that cannabinoids can inhibit tumor growth, various mechanisms, including increasing cellular apoptosis, that's programmed cell death, and suppressing proliferation or the replication and the growth of cancer cells. THC may increase tumor growth due to reduced immune function, though. But looking through the rest of this research, they're showing that the CBD has massive anti-cancer effects. Mice with lung adenocarcinoma given oral THC showed slower tumor growth, though. Animals that were treated with 10 days demonstrated a dose-dependent retardation, so it downregulated tumor growth. Evaluated in vitro, that would be in Petri dish, a cell outside of biological organisms, outside of the animal's body or person's body. Anti-proliferative, so it would stop the growth again. Ability of CBD on human glioma, so that would be brain or nervous system cancers. They found that adding CBD to cell lines led to significant decreases in mitochondrial metabolism. So slowing the ability for the powerhouses. Mitochondria are like the power plants that produce ATP and energy for all cells, including cancerous cells. So if it can cause dysfunction in the mitochondria of cancer cells, but they didn't see it show mitochondrial dysfunction in healthy cells, which was amazing. So it could weaken cancer cells. Local administration of cannabidiol to CB2 agonists in mice induced considerable regression of malignant tumors generated by inoculations of glioma cells. Preventing cancer metastasis, so the spread of cancer. Primary tumor, so using CBD could halt or prevent or reduce the risk and opportunity for spread of cancer. Mice treated with cannabidiol showed a 40 to 50% reduction in tumor growth and a 65 to 80% reduction in lung metastasis. So right there, primary tumors switching and going into areas of the lungs that could be deadly, and that's usually what happens. And when cancer becomes deadly, it's usually not deadly in the breast. It's deadly once it spreads to other organ systems like the lungs. So there's another use for it. Cannabidiol has favorable safety profile, and here's where it comes down to the brass tacks of it. It looks like this wilderness remedy right here, something that we should be utilizing and giving people the freedom to use as they so wish, has a safety profile more favorable when compared to other analgesic or pain medications. In the aforementioned studies, THC has been seen to be more sedating than codeine, but unlike opioids, was less associated with respiratory distress. Extrapolated use would have to be 680 kilograms smoked over 15 minutes to be deadly. The central nervous system adverse and non-therapeutic effect included euphoria, disorientation, drowsiness, dizziness, motor incoordination, and poor concentration. So some negative effects there. But again, that's the negative effects not from CBD, but from THC. But again, massive benefit for just supplementing with CBD. There is a concern regarding the addictive potential of cannabis, though. We have concerns. Our legislators are concerned about if they legalize this for medical uses, then it's going to go to legalization of recreational uses, and the public can grow it themselves and use it themselves. Well, could that have a potential like Andy Holt doesn't want to see people separating their minds from reality and causing addiction and causing other harms? He's worried about that, and rightfully so. But when you look at the risk of dependence, this is directly from the study, the last sentence here in the description, in the discussion, the risk of dependence on cannabis is reported to be 9% in long-term users, not short-term users, long-term users. That is significantly less than addiction rates of heroin, cocaine, alcohol, and prescribed drugs, like narcotics. Listen to that stuff, people. We need to end the wrongful discrimination against supplements and wilderness remedies and things that people can utilize themselves and can grow themselves and help themselves. Let's teach people to fish. Let's teach people how to grow it and then how to make teas out of it or tinctures out of it, not smoke it because then they could harm it just from carcinogens, from burning things can be carcinogenic. How to grow it to where it's low THC so it doesn't have the psychoactive effect, but it has massive beneficial effects. Teach people to do that stuff for themselves so that people, and we have home economic classes or home remedy classes in our high schools to where people can know how to use peppermint oil or make peppermint tea to help with anxiety and depression and soothing and calming and help them sleep and stuff like that. Like people, like I was walking through the woods the other day with a buddy of mine. And we're just looking at the trees and we're like, what's that tree? What's this tree? What's that plant? And I mean, half the stuff I don't know. And I'm like, I wish I had the knowledge of my great-grandfather or my grandfather. You know, we lost the art of identifying plants and animals in nature and knowing what they're here for and knowing what they could be used for. That's the goal of the Wild Doc, is to give that information back to people so they could take a trip through the woods, be able to pick up a plant, know which one to eat, which one not to eat, how to prepare that, how to spice up their food with that, how to take that when they have an illness or an infection, how to take that when they're stricken with cancer, God forbid. You know, that's the stuff we need to get, the information we need to get back to people. So I'm going to wrap it up here. We're going to end the night's talk. I appreciate everybody chiming in online. Whitney, you're welcome. Let me know what else I can do, Whitney, if you need to email me, private message here, and I'll get back with you. I'll send you those articles. Tuning in from Clarksville. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for tuning in. And Marlena, if you're listening, we'll message you. I definitely want to touch base with you. I want to hear what kind of diet, the majority of the time when cancer, you want to hold to a plant-based diet. So I'd love to hear what type of nutrition you are utilizing along with the use of cannabis. So, all right, everybody, make sure you go to thewilddoc.com, subscribe, and make sure you get the references and resources to send to your friends and family. All right, everybody, good night. Love you all.